Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Shankly Gates podcast, where we're looking at Liverpool's victory in the EFL Cup against Chelsea on the weekend, but also looking ahead to our FA Cup fixture against Norwich and then later in the league against West Ham. And this evening, I'm joined by David and Dan, who are both there on the weekend. David, how are you doing?
Recovered, mate. Fully recovered. Back to normality from a fantastic weekend. Yeah.
Dan, how about you?
Yeah, I'm all good, mate. Yeah, tired yesterday, naturally. Voice isn't quite 100% yet, which I keep noticing throughout today. But other than that, I'm all good, mate. Yeah.
Well, hopefully you don't start squeaking when you're talking, but if you
hopefully.
do, well, we'll let you off. David, I'll start with you. Can you just sum up for us what the experience was like on Sunday?
It was great, because we've said this about the Carabao Cup and that, and it's like we always say it's a Mickey Mouse trophy. When City won it 4 years on the run, we're like, oh, who's interested? It's not even a big deal. But then you get there and you're in the game, and it's a good game of football. It's probably the best 0-0 you'll ever see in your life. And the nerves start kicking in, and then obviously you win it, and you're like, well, I've just seen my team win a trophy. Like, it doesn't get much better than that, regardless of what it is. Jordan Henderson's just done a shuffle and lifted a bit of silverware over his head, regardless. So just brilliant, mate. Just brilliant being around great people. The trip went really well as well, sort of. It's what we could control. But just being with boss people and just seeing everyone enjoy themselves and seeing Jurgen Klopp enjoy himself, it'll live long in the memory.
Dan, how about you? What were the feelings before the game and then the experience of it as a whole?
Yeah, I was really confident before the match, to be honest with you, because obviously we've been in sort of flying form, but Chelsea are almost like spoilers, aren't they, in many ways? And they spoil games of football, and they're effective at it. You've got to give them the due. But like I say, I always felt like we'd find a way. I didn't expect it to obviously pan out the way it did. I don't think anyone could have. Yuri Geller himself wouldn't have predicted that, I don't reckon. But yeah, listen, the game panned out as expected, and it was great. It was a boss day. The atmosphere was fantastic. I thought Liverpool fans outdone themselves, to be honest with you. I thought we were superb throughout. I think the DJ helped. He was either red or he had some very good inside info, one or the other. But yeah, listen, it was boss. I mean, like I say, the DJ very much played into our hands at times with the song choices. But yeah, it's a great day, like.
I could tell that when One Kiss came on at the end. But yeah, David, atmosphere for you. What did you think of it on the day?
It was brilliant. It was really brilliant. I was a bit worried at first because sometimes when you've got such a big sort of capacity, if you like, in such a big area, it can be quite difficult. I put it to sort of, I know it's not the same, but if you think about Wolves away, you get the whole side of the ground. It's very difficult to sort of generate any sort of atmosphere. Yeah. But it just, as you say, from my perspective, it might have been totally different from people who were watching it at home or in different parts of the stadium. It just seemed like it was bouncing the whole way through. They were just behind the players. It was brilliant to be all together. And as I say, you can say it's only the Carabao Cup, but it was just a final and we were all together and the noise was great. And it really pushed the players on as well, I think. And Klopp mentioned it, didn't he, in his press conference afterwards about the atmosphere being great. So full marks to anyone who went there. And I just wish that it was like that every time we played, especially at Anfield.
We'll go into the game now. Before the game, we talked about the lineups, and we mentioned in the podcast earlier in the week that we expected it to be a full-strength team, and it looked like that is what Klopp put out, aside from the obvious absence of Thiago. So, David, for you, do you think that, obviously in hindsight, it's very easy to say it was a correct call, but do you think it was a right call to go full strength over picking those players that were, got you there to the final, the likes of Minamino or Origi?
Yeah, it's got to be. It's got to be because it's silverware, isn't it? And fair play to Minamino and Origi. I know Origi came on and didn't really do much apart from score a penalty, but still scored a penalty. Minamino played a massive part in it, but let's be honest, if he picks that team in the final, with sort of Elijah Dixon-Bonner in midfield and Conor Bradley at right back, you'd go, what have I travelled all the way down here for? Like, put your strongest team out. The reason he picks lesser teams, if you like, in the early rounds is so that we can rest our full strength team and also give these players opportunities to play. And I think it's only fair that if you do get to a point where you are in a final, you are at Wembley, especially for the team like Liverpool who hasn't had success at Wembley over recent years. We haven't won a trophy there since 2012. So it was important that he sort of got rewrote that history as well of Wembley being a place that we win. So I think he got it. Is sad, but I thought Naby Keita stepped in and was absolutely fantastic. Really under the radar, didn't get much mention about how good he was, and I think the team was spot on. Yeah, definitely.
I'll stick with you as well there, David. Do you think there is a bit of concern in terms of Thiago? We've seen this season he has missed quite a few key games, and it seems like a repeating issue of picking up these small injuries. Do you think that, obviously we've seen with Naby Keita and Matip, they've gone on programs to try and strengthen up. Do you think that's something that Thiago would have to do?
Potentially. It's becoming a bit of a concern in terms of like how often it's happening with he's getting these injuries. I know he was a bit unlucky at the start when he got absolutely nailed by Richarlison, wasn't it, in the derby, and that wrote him out for a long time. But little things like that where you pick up a knock, and I said Stan after the match, like, he's picked up a knock, as he said he's not wanting to play, or is that like as Dan said, someone's probably told him, look, you can play, but you're probably going to miss Inter Milan in the Champions League in a couple of weeks, and you're probably going to be out for a couple of games. So it's the wise thing to do. If you picked up a knock, you're probably going to let the team down. So just step back. And he was upset, wasn't he, when he wasn't playing and stuff? But he's still going to get a winner's medal. So it all worked out in the end. But yeah, we've got to keep our eye on him a little bit, especially with. I think we're going to need to invest in the midfield in the summer. I know that's a different topic altogether, but with the summer we've got coming up, I think we've got to keep an eye on him, especially his age as well. He's getting on a bit, isn't he?
Dan, what about you? Do you think we felt Thiago's absence, and what do you think we can do in order to stop these injury issues that he keeps on having?
Yeah, definitely felt his absence. I thought, especially with the first 20 minutes, I don't know whether it probably rocked the fans slightly as well. It certainly rocked me when I obviously heard in the ground that Thiago wasn't playing. Just felt like a bit of a sucker punch right before kickoff, really. And that's not to discredit Naby Keita, but I think we were all delighted when we seen the lineup. Yeah. So to lose someone out of that was a blow. And to lose someone who's so capable of dictating any game, like I said in the build-up, that we're talking about a man who won, I'm almost fed up of saying it myself now, but he was man of the match in Champions League final. He's won everything there is to win. Like, he can control any game of football. So going into a final against a team as good as Chelsea, you want him there. So losing him was a kick in the teeth. And like I say, it took us almost 15 minutes in the game to react to that loss, it looked like. And Chelsea had the better start by far. But even after that, I mean, we were much better, and we probably dictated terms somewhat. But if we dictated terms without someone as good as Thiago, just imagine what it would have been like had he been on the field. So you always miss him. And as Dave says, we do need to be careful with him, because he's missing I don't think he's played against United, City, Chelsea. He's missing key games time and time again. And he's so good. Like, obviously we got away with it in a sense on Sunday, him not being there. But if we're going to win XYZ, like we all want, and we're going to talk about later, he needs to be there more often than not.
For you, Dan, could you just sum up the first half? Were you quite surprised the way that Chelsea played and came out and had quite a few chances early on, or did you expect a game to be like that in the first half?
No, I was quite surprised. I must admit, it almost looked like Chelsea wanted to catch us on the hop, if you like, and I'd expected them to be a little bit more pragmatic than they were early doors, but they came at us, and they arguably could have took the lead. If it wasn't for Kelleher being outstanding, they probably should have been 1-0 up quite early on. And had they have got that early goal, then they'd have sat on that. Then we'd have seen, like that second half at Anfield earlier in the season when they sat back with 10, we'd have seen a repeat of that for possibly 80 minutes, to be honest. So it's a really good thing that we kept them out. And you probably could credit Chelsea for that, because it's probably the last thing we expected. So they did catch us by surprise. But like I say, after that, we grew into the game. I felt like we sort of exerted our dominance on them, and we showed that we are the better team, and we're certainly in the better form. And we could have probably got into the break 1-0 up after that point. So in terms of balance of half, it was probably about even. And it was probably fair that it went in level in some description.
David, what about you? How would you sum up the first half? And Dan mentioned there we could have gone in at half-time 1-0 up. Would you point that towards a Mane chance that he had?
Yeah, if anyone in our team's going to miss that chance, it's Mane, isn't it? Anyone else, I think, even if Joel Matip was there, he'd have scored that, especially in his current form. Look, it was they obviously they had us a little bit sort of rocked, and I do, as Dan says, I do put that kind of down to Thiago early on, as well as Keita played early on. He was sort of getting caught out positionally and not controlling the space, and he was a bit off it. But then after that initial period that Chelsea had, we did go into the game. We were dominant, and as I say, we probably should have scored. I mean, they had their chances as well. I don't know how the entire game ended 0-0, if I'm honest. I mean, 90 minutes, it could have been 3-3. You know, it was just chances galore that were... Obviously, the offside flag was getting involved, and there was good saves, and there was opportunities, you know, for both teams. So, but we definitely were the better team. Certainly after that opening period in the first half, and probably throughout the game, really. And yeah, as I say, I'm just shocked that we didn't score in normal time.
Defensively, David, were you quite surprised with the fact that, you know, obviously we caught a lot of Chelsea's goals offside, but were you surprised with the amount of chances that they kept getting and getting in behind as well?
Yeah, we were. Someone said to me, if we play like that against anyone else, they'll catch us and they'll score. There was opportunities, wasn't he, for them? They did have chances. I mean, Mason Mount hits the post, doesn't he? And he probably should have scored. I know there was a few where the offside flag got involved, and I've seen a few complaints, Chelsea fans, about the Lukaku one where I don't know, is he offside? I haven't really seen it back properly. I've just seen a still of it. So, you know what, there's certainly, it's not a perfect win. There's certainly things that you can still pick up on and improve on. You certainly need to for Wednesday, because there'll be chances there that Norwich will be going, we can do that, we can do this if we can. And, you know, there's certainly opportunities that Chelsea made us look a little bit open, and we'll need to sort that out. But, you know, overall, I thought, yeah, Kevin Kelleher makes an excellent couple of saves. And it should never really go to him to do that, in all honesty, but he done it, and that's his job. And, you know, you can tell he works with Alisson day in, day out, can't you? Some of the one-to-one saves he made were excellent, and fair play to him. But yeah, there were certainly chances where I just thought Chelsea were going to score, and again, was very surprised when they never. Very grateful for it.
Well, David mentioned there, Chelsea made us look open at parts, particularly for me at the start of each half. Would you agree, and would you say that the second half we grew into the game, or would you say that Chelsea dominated it?
Yeah, I would agree, and I'd say the second half very much replicated the first in terms of Chelsea came out all guns blazing, probably with a very similar game plan as how they started the game, in terms of Tuchel probably said, listen, 10 minutes, try and get the goal, and then we'll kill the game entirely. And they did that both halves. Thankfully, like I say, obviously never achieved it. Chelsea are our kryptonite in a way, in terms of the fact they're very, very well organised defensively. They obviously play that 5 at the back, and that kind of exposes the fact that Robertson and Trent want to get so high. Because if we lose the ball in anything like a dangerous area, they've got Azpilicueta and Alonso bombing on into lots of space. So it's not a huge surprise that Chelsea did have joy against us. I think that's to be expected. Credit should go to, I suppose, in a way, A, the high line in terms of playing offsides, and B, refusing to let them have too many of them. They obviously had a decent amount, but no more sort of chances than we had against what is, you know, 3 defenders and 2 wing backs. That's difficult, you know. And Salah had a difficult afternoon in particular. We might touch on him more so in a minute, but he barely had a kick compared to that fellow on the other side anyway. But yeah, listen, the second half panned out kind of similar in the first, in my opinion. We grew into it, started dictating play, started creating our own chances, and obviously created quite a few big ones ourselves.
Well, Dan, I'll stick with you there, because now you're eager to talk about him. Who stood out for you in the 90 minutes overall?
Oh, there's going to be no surprise here with the fella you mentioned. I can tell you that.
Have a guess. No, honestly, like I said to Dave and Liam on the way out, I said something which is half controversial, but also half accurate. Luis Diaz on Sunday was more of a threat than Mohamed Salah, certainly with the ball, because it might have been up who he was up against. Obviously, Diaz was against Shalabah and Azpilicueta. Didn't get much change. Salah didn't get much change out of Rudiger and Alonso on the other side. Rudiger in particular pocketed Mohamed Salah. So that's obviously a factor, whereas Diaz on the other side was running riot, quite frankly, and he had Shalabah in all sorts of trouble. I mean, some of the touches, some of the passes, some of the no-look stuff he was doing, it was just mesmerising to watch. And it was really telling for me. Like, obviously, Salah in front of goal is pretty lethal. We've seen that time and time again. Diaz isn't quite that yet. We know that. But in terms of ball at the feet, running at players, I think Diaz is more dangerous, which sounds insane because he's been here a month. But honest to God, like he terrorizes people. He's so quick, he's so strong, he's so skillful. His ability to go past the defender, in my opinion, is better than Salah's. And I know we've seen these sort of wonder goals from Salah, whereby his dancing feet in the area make people look silly. But I'm talking more deeper than that in terms of running past people. That lad, that Colombian, is unreal. Absolutely unreal. And it was really telling in the game for me, whereby when we had the ball, I was in my head and occasionally out loud saying, find Diaz and not Salah. And that might have been indicative of the game they were having and the defenders they were playing against, etc., etc. But if you're telling the side to give the ball to a lad who's been there for 3 or 4 weeks, as opposed to Mohamed Salah, you know you're dealing with something special.
Well, David, Dan's mentioned Luis Diaz there. We obviously don't score in the 90 minutes, but who stood out for you overall?
Well, Diaz is one of the players that stood out massively for me as well. And as Dan says, he said that at the weekend. And it's just this directness of he gets the ball and he wants to go at people. And I don't think we've got anyone like that. I know Salah is very skillful in possession and Mane to an extent does it. But they'll only do it when they see fit and there's space. Otherwise, they'll try and work the ball around. Whereas Diaz is just like going at you and you're going to have to stop me. And if you can't, unlucky. I did pick up on a criticism and Dan weren't best pleased with me and I did at the time.
No,
but just a slight knock on him is like, he does it in his own half when we're quite deep and he give the ball away once or twice. It was definitely once in the first half. But that'll come out of him, no problem. In terms of other players, it's difficult to pinpoint anyone in particular because I thought everyone played really, really well. Aside from probably Mane was a bit average, probably harsh because he should have scored. I think that's the big thing. And then he had a bit of a cob on when he came off when I felt it was deserved. But I think the whole team just played really, really well. I think Dan's right in the sense that Salah didn't have much to do. Rudiger seems to have his number. He's done that to him twice already now this season. He'd certainly done it at Stamford Bridge as well when, I know he scored, but the rest of the game, he just had him pinned and he couldn't do anything about it. So Luis Diaz was definitely the highlight for me. I thought Van Dijk played well, but when we were in possession at the back, I think Klopp had a pop at him at some point as well in the first half because we weren't urgent enough. It was like, say Matip had the ball, instead of going straight to Robertson, getting it moving quicker, it was going through Van Dijk and vice versa. That was my only knock on him. I know he got played of the match and stuff, but that was my only knock on them in the first half. At the back was very, very slow. Fabinho, again, another great game. Just picks everything up, just doesn't stop, just wins everything, gets you on the front foot. Honestly, I don't think anyone played particularly bad. And we've already mentioned Kevin Keller as well, but Luis Diaz for me is definitely the highlight of that game. He was just absolutely sensational. Well,
we'll go into extra time. He went off, Luis Diaz, and so did Mane, and quite a few changes happened in there. And extra time just seemed to be a stark contrast to the 90 minutes that we'd seen. Do you think that was largely down to the substitutions? And would you say that we were lucky to get to penalties?
Come on, Dan.
Sorry, Dave. Yeah.
No, go on, mate.
Extra time's always like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Extra time's always a bit of a write-off. That's why I really enjoyed straight to penalties, if I'm honest, in the earlier rounds, because it's so. I mean, the substitutions probably do play a part, and obviously a lot of the substitutions are with penalties in mind for a kickoff. So it's a strange situation, but I also think by that point, both sides know how much a goal hurts them. Like if you concede an extra time, that's pretty much you, because you're on like the downward slope, aren't you? From that point on, like you're home and dry. Whereas if you're scoring pretty much any point during 90 minutes, you've got half a sniff. But like I say, you concede in extra time, that's you losing the cup. Like so, that always plays a big impact. And in terms of the subs, I don't think any of them particularly influenced the game. I thought Milner did okay. Obviously, Jota has a couple of half chances. One, he absolutely fluffs and gets absolutely nothing on the ball, which isn't like him, in fairness. It usually only takes sort of half a sniff, doesn't it? And that's it. He's away celebrating. So that was a shame. Harvey Elliott did okay. But like I say, in the main, most of them changes look like they were for penalties. And obviously, we're going to touch a bit more on the extra time situation. But, absolute masterstroke bringing them penalty takers on, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, David, Dan's mentioned there substitutions, losing your cups, especially in Chelsea's case. So for you, could you sum up extra time and the substitutions that Klopp brought on?
Yeah, I thought again, we've praised him in recent weeks for substitutions, and I thought all of them were spot on. I never really like Origi coming on though, if I'm honest, because I know it's a cup final and there's a chance he might just pop up at the back post and score, but he doesn't tend to offer you much, and he didn't really do anything for us when he came on. But I understand that you're probably, I'd prefer Minamino coming on if I'm honest. But you're obviously looking at trying to do something a little bit different up there. So I did understand to an extent. I liked Milner coming on as well. I thought it was a wise choice to get someone in there with a little bit of. He's almost like at that point of his career where he's done it all, and he's seen it all, he's won everything, so he doesn't care. Not in a bad way. He's just not bothered. He's not overawed by anything, and you're seeing it from you've seen the picture of them celebrating at the very end where all the players are running. And he's just sort of looking away, just like, not really that bothered. And someone's put, James Milner's just remembered he's left the iron on or something. He just he's been there and seen. He's got the t-shirt several times. He's not bothered. So I thought that was a very wise substitution. Jota coming on's the exact one that you want. But as Dan says, I think we mentioned in last week's podcast, extra time's usually pretty much a bit of a non-contest in terms of like both teams are too scared to really open up and go forward. And there was chances there for Chelsea as well to score in extra time. Did they have a couple ruled out for offside in extra time as well, I think?
Yeah, that late Lukaku one as well.
Which, judging by the way we started both halves, it took us 15 minutes to get into it. So in extra time, we've only got 15 minutes per half. We just didn't really get on the front foot enough apart from that Jota chance. Was that in extra time, Dan? It's all a blur.
Yeah, it was,
wasn't it?
That was
the chance.
Van Dijk header as well was extra time, I think, wasn't it?
Was it? Yeah.
That was a good header.
Yeah,
that was me wheeling off around the stand. That was like, to be honest. But,
but as I say, it was little chances like that. Otherwise, it's a bit of a non-contest, and you're almost accepting penalties when it goes to extra time. You just sort of like it's going to pens. It's game over. And it makes you think about the golden goal rule and how that used to sort of open things up a little bit, doesn't it? Because teams might actually go for it a little bit more, maybe, or not the adverse infection. So, but it seemed like penalties from the start to me.
Well, I do want to touch briefly before we move on to penalties about Chelsea's late substitution and the impact that had. Dan, I'll start with you. A lot of it's been made of the substitution that Chelsea made and the later aftermath of it. One in particular, Kepa Arrizabalaga.
Yeah.
For you, do you think bringing him on impacted the game completely in the outcome of it?
Oh yeah, well yeah, definitely. I've seen a tweet today. I don't know if you guys have seen it of a Liverpool fan as they go up to get the medals. He says to Kepa, he says, "It's a good job they brought you on there, mate." It is golden. Like Kepa just walks straight past him. He's not interested in that conversation. Yeah, listen. Of course it does. Yeah, and it's an interesting call. Obviously, hindsight's a wonderful thing. It's obviously the wrong call. He could be a hero at that point, and then Tuchel's a genius. Fine margins, but if you looked at the way Mendy played in the game, for me, he's man the match. And if Chelsea win the cup and he stays on, whether he saves one or not, he's man the match. So to take someone off like that, who's obviously full of confidence, like just saving everything that comes at him, and bringing on Kepa, who, has never really been very good in England, if we're going to be honest, despite costing more than Alisson. I want to say 75 million, something like that. Never really worked for him, has been sat on the bench for 120 minutes. I actually thought when he came on, there was about 3 or 4 minutes to go, including sort of added time. I thought, if we can get sort of anywhere near the goal here, which we did with a Jota chance, actually, I thought if we get anything at him, we're in with a hell of a shout compared to a few minutes ago with Mendy. And listen, he's obviously a good goalkeeper. He's a Premier League goalkeeper. But he's nowhere near the standard the fella just walked off. So it was a real shame when Jota kicked the air instead of anything resembling a football. But yeah, listen, obviously as it pans out, it turns out to be an absolute horror of a decision. I was actually quite surprised, though, just to say, that he didn't start the game, Kepa.
Yeah.
Because he played all the previous games. And obviously Klopp made the decision to stick by Kelleher and have Alisson sat on the bench. So I thought it was a little bit of a poor move from Tuchel not to start it to begin with, but it was an even worse move to bring him on just before penalties.
David, what about you? What are your opinions on the Kepa situation?
I mean, where'd you start with it? You look back at a couple of years ago where he refuses to come off in the Carabao Cup final, wasn't it? He refuses to come off for what has basically just been done to him. And there was a part of me that was sort of thinking, I want Mendy to do the same. Because as Dan says, he was brilliant. He saved everything. He made brilliant saves all the time. He was fantastic. He's a great goalkeeper. And then you bring him on, he starts being an absolute muppet, like standing on this penalty spot and taking ages to go back. I don't know why Stuart Atwell just didn't book him on the second one and say, if you do that again, you're getting a second yellow, you're being sent off. But that was just typical of Stuart Atwell on the day. Just didn't have a clue on what he was doing. And then, he does all that and he's come on to get inside our heads and then he forgets he's taking a pen and takes a goal kick and sends it right into the Liverpool fans. I mean, you couldn't write a better script. You just couldn't.
No.
It was a proper Hollywood ending of just all the way back to when he refused to come off and all the stuff he was doing, all the shenanigans he was getting up to.
Yeah.
To then sky it over the bar and everybody else, including Kevin Kelleher, scores. Perfect. Absolutely perfect way to win.
Well, I'm sure Maurizio Sarri enjoyed that one as well.
100%. He'd have had a ciggy out enjoying
chewing tobacco somewhere.
100%.
Just to say on that as well, on the penalty situation, obviously Kepa, even to look at, if I was a Liverpool player, I'd be delighted that he was coming on. Because you look at Mendy, obviously the way he's played as well, but he's an imposing fella, Mendy. Whereas Kepa just isn't. He's I imagine he's still 6 foot, but he's not 6'6". And he's not a big bloke, you know what I mean? So just looking at him in the goal, you'd think... look at Van Dijk's penalty for a kickoff. He looks at Kepa and he goes, I don't care if you're stood on that side. I'm smashing it past you on the same side. It's just ridiculous. And also, I want to say, during penalties, obviously, it got quite deep. And there was loads of narratives in my head. I don't know why my head was working overtime, but I was saying we had the Trent and the Reece James possibility of one of them losing it, because obviously they're both right backs. There's always that argument. Then there was Lukaku, and I thought, everything's gone on with him. Maybe he's the one. Harvey Elliott, he'd have felt heartbroken if he'd have missed it. So on and so on. And then when it got to about 8 or 9, and I thought, the keepers are coming soon. In my head, and I said this to Dave on the way at the ground, I thought we were all right here, because Kelleher used to be a striker when he was growing up in Ireland. The most mad rationale ever when it got down to keepers. I thought, he used to be a striker. Kepa obviously didn't. If he does get to goalies like it was about to, if you can have an advantage when it gets to goalkeepers taking penalties, it was with us. So I was always half confident at that stage.
And also, just before you move on, Taran.
Nice day. Carry on.
Edouard Mendy has not long just won a penalty shootout for Senegal in AFCON.
Mad, isn't it?
You'd think that's pretty good practice for going into a Carabao Cup final.
Yeah.
How
cool's Kelleher, though? You mentioned Kepa there and all his antics. I know we're going on about these pens now, but Kelleher was just not asked. Not bothered.
No, didn't
just
care.
Getting the ball, rolling it back to our player coming forward and going standing back, and just nothing fazed him. No. And I've noticed that about him quite a lot. Obviously, really good. We speak about, we're going to upset the blue half now, but we speak about Jordan Pickford quite a lot. And he's a very, very good goalkeeper. But his biggest downfall is the fact he gets far too animated. He gets far too involved with situations. And then he ends up doing something wrong because of it. We see in that Newcastle game a couple of years ago with Everton when he was getting involved with the crowd and then makes 2 howlers in the second half. And you think, it's because he's working overtime in terms of getting involved with things around him. And then we see the Van Dijk situation. Obviously, he's got that rashness in him. Whereas Kelleher, seen him on Sunday, he just wasn't bothered. 23-year-old in Wembley in a cup final playing against Chelsea. It was as if he was still playing up front for Cork under-16s or whatever. He just wasn't fazed by anything. He's brilliant.
I just want to stick on this topic, actually, because you've talked about that and Kelleher and his calmness. Would you say that is a big part of Alisson being there, the influence that having Alisson, ahead of you, a keeper like that, and then having Virgil van Dijk in the defence in front of you as well? Do you think that that's had an impact on Kelleher and his development at the club? I'll start with you, Dan.
You have to say yes, wouldn't you? Obviously, you've got to have that in your personality as well, because to use that Jordan Pickford comparison again, Jordan Pickford quite clearly is almost like a quite easily agitated person, which there's nothing wrong with, but that then plays out in his goalkeeping. Whereas Kelleher is obviously by nature, by his personality, quite laid back. But there's no doubt about it. He'll have looked at Alisson the way he conducts himself in matches, outside of matches. And he might have had conversations with Alisson about a similar thing. Because in my opinion, you can't get sort of worked up and too involved as a goalkeeper. You have to be the calmest man on the pitch. Otherwise, something's going to go wrong.
Yeah.
And Kelleher is the calmest man, and probably apart from Virgil van Dijk, but that's just, next level sort of situation, But yeah, in terms of Kelleher's ability, there's no doubt about it. He's looked and spoke to Alisson, and Alisson will have said and shown him, be calm and be in control of what's around you, because Kelleher definitely is.
David, do you agree?
100%, 100%. And we waxed lyrical about him on the way home a little bit because I don't think there's a better number 2 out there than what we've got. I mean, Klopp says it all the time. He's like John Achterberg's little project of this little skinny kid from Ireland who's now... He is genuinely a top-class goalkeeper. I mean, I think he gets in probably anyone outside the top 4's team. For me, no problem. I think he starts. I think he's that good. And I think I'd love to see him just sit behind Alisson for the rest of his career, but he's far too good for it. He is far too good for it. And Liverpool are going to have to sell him at some point because he can't be allowed to just sit behind Alisson. As I'd love him to. I'd really love him to, because what an insurance policy he is. And I said it on the way home, when he sort of got switched around with Adrian in the pecking order, I was sort of thinking, why is that? Because Adrian's an experienced goalkeeper, Premier League proven, has played a few games for us. You know what you're getting. And that's why, because Kelleher is that good. He is that good. And yeah, obviously, if you're working with a goalkeeper like Alisson, who I believe is the best in the world, you are going to pick up a lot of his good traits. Alisson's not got that streak in him like Dan mentioned about Jordan Pickford, where he's just a bit rash and lacks focus. Alisson is 100% on the ball all the time, works hard. You can just tell by his character, and that's rubbing off massively on Kelleher. You can see that.
David, I'll stick with you as well now for this one. Let's just sum up these penalties and pick which one you think was the best one taken for us, and then you can select a Chelsea one if you want to.
Oh, Van Dijk's is the best for us. I love
You
it.
reckon?
Oh, I love it. I love how Kepa takes like 3 steps to the right and Van Dijk just goes, all right, and then stares him out after it. Like putting the penalty past him wasn't enough. He then had to stare through his soul and just be like, yeah, you do what you want, mate. Like, you're not going to do it. For them, it's hard to think of one for them. I mean, there was a few, everyone took a good penalty, really, apart from Werner and Canate, who arguably
Alonso's could have been saved.
Alonso's as well, probably should have been saved. Jorginho, when he steps up, you know he's going to score, don't you? He's cool as, and he's always going to send you the wrong way. But yeah, Van Dijk's was my favourite, definitely.
Dan, what about you? Which one was your favourite?
I think both Van Dijk and Fabinho is obviously the most audacious out the lot.
Yeah.
But for me, in terms of quality, it's Salah's actually. It's unsavable, quite frankly. I think the others, obviously, if the keeper stands still, he catches Fabinho's. And Van Dijk's, although it is incredibly well struck and it's ridiculous, I do think like that's a little bit too close for comfort to the goalkeeper, generally speaking. It's not at him by any stretch of imagination, but he's also giving him half a chance there and not giving him a chance in the same breath. But Salah's, for me, like I say, you're just not saving that. It's side netting region, similar to Milner, actually, to be fair. Sends keeper the wrong way, laughs at him and walks off. Yeah, Salah's for me. And I actually never trust Salah on penalties. I'm wrong, but I never trust him. And in terms of Chelsea, it's Jorginho quite easy, actually, because I don't know if any of the others were particularly good, to be fair. I think Kelleher, for as brilliant as he was, has half a chance for a couple, and in particular the Alonso one. But the Jorginho one, like Dave says, you know for a fact that you're moving on. The game's not being decided at that point because he is going to score.
Well, Dan, I'll stick with you before we move on as well. I just want to pick on a few moments in the game that sort of had people talking about Naby Keita's challenge on Trevor Chalobah. Yeah. People were saying that he should have been sent off for it. Dan, what were your opinions on it?
For me, it's just an unfortunate one in terms of Keita's caught Chalobah high. There's no doubt about it. I think he needed stitches after it. It's not great. But at the same time, if you look at like the moment But if you look at as it happens, it's very much a 50-50. They're both going for the same ball. And just before the contact happens, both Chalobah and Keita's legs, Chalobah's is arguably higher than Keita's. So one of them is going to get caught, you'd imagine, in some way. It just so happened that it was Chalobah. So I think getting on with the game and calling it just one of them things was probably fair enough, because neither man had any intention of hurting the other. It just so happened, like I say, that one of them was going to come out worse. It's almost like a head collision. One almost comes off worse all the time. And it was just Chalobah this occasion.
What about you, David? Do you agree with Dan?
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same as Dan, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've only just seen it back today. And it's like both of them sort of pull out of the tackle. It's not like a full-blooded, Keita hasn't gone in there to do Chalobah, because, Keita wouldn't do anyone, would he? He's not that type of player. And it's just an awkward, like, the way it's landed on his leg and stuff, and it just happens. It's not nice. It's there's no malice behind it whatsoever at all for me. And they've both sort of half-heartedly gone in for it, and it's just come out that way. It's just one of them things for me.
I also want to talk about set pieces as well. I know Dan and Kieran and I have talked quite a bit about Liverpool set pieces and our corners and been quite critical of them. But yesterday, it seems like corners, free kicks, penalties, whatever it was, just all seemed to be on spot. And we've seen in the past few days that I don't think you agreed with that one, Dan, did you?
No, sorry, yeah. Andy Robertson was making me pull my hair out for a bit. Like, yeah.
Carry on with that. So Andy Robertson, you don't think is
sorry, you know what I'm like.
No, he's right. I was going to say the same thing. Yeah,
my facial expressions kill it off. Yeah, I couldn't. Andy Robbo, honestly, I thought he had a really good game, actually, generally speaking. Yeah. He looked like he was dead on his feet about 3 or 4 times to me, but he kept going somehow. Having said that, I thought his set pieces were woeful. Absolutely. I don't know whether a few happened in quick succession that sort of marred my judgment, because it felt like we had 2 or 3 corners from that side and he hit the first man every time. And not even like the first man was getting up to head it away. It was like clearing at his feet and stuff. It was really frustrating, especially when you consider, which obviously you want to enjoy, how strong we are in the air. And you send Van Dijk and Matip up, and Fabinho for that matter, you want a good delivery, and it just was. And in a game that's so tight as well, hitting the first man in a corner is unforgivable, in my opinion. And I actually think, I'm like 99% sure, that we got a corner soon after that from the side Robertson would take, and Trent went over and took it. So you thought, and he might just be having one of them days. I imagine footballers sometimes just say, like Robert might have turned around to Trent and said, listen, at my corners, it's just not happening today. I'm not striking the ball clean. You have the next one. And that's fair enough. Or Trent said, you're striking the ball terribly here. Any chance? But whatever it was, that was a bit of a problem for me.
What about you then, David? What do you make of our set pieces? Sorry.
Yeah, no, Dan is spot on. But on the flip side of that, I'd say Trent has got a lot better.
Yeah.
Some of his deliveries from corners were just sensational. He's actually getting them not just like at the near post, they're going towards a dangerous area at the far post, where I don't know, there seems to be this thing of football where near post is like the go-to thing where people want to, but I'd much rather see my corners go in around a penalty spot, back post, keep it away from the keeper, especially when you've got Van Dijk in the area and Matip or Canate or whoever and is in there. Fabinho can win a header, Jota in the air, brilliant. So Trent's deliveries were excellent. The one set piece that confused me was in the first half where they let Salah take the free kick and it just went miles wide, a little routine. Yeah. That's Trent Alexander-Arnold's territory right there. Let him take it. Now and again they go over the bar, but now and again they go in, or they at least hit the target. And I just thought that was a bit of a strange one, because it seemed to be not all right. It wasn't a perfect angle for him, but it was a good position. And you're probably not going to get that many free kicks in and around that area. So we should have let him take that. But some of the corners were fantastic, apart from Robbo. He had the stinker, and fair play. He just took himself off it. But yeah, the set pieces have improved, definitely.
Well, we'll sum up this now. Liverpool Carabao Cup winners, and 3 more trophies up for grabs this season. Jurgen Klopp said the other day that he's hunting for trophies. I know he made out that the quadruple's not on the mind, but the players are hungry for trophies as well. David, for you, what is an acceptable amount this season? But then also looking ahead towards the end of Klopp's era, what would you be happy with?
Let's just get it straight that we're going to win all 4 trophies this season. I'm putting it out there now. It's happening. Okay, let's just get that right. But in terms of a successful season, I think if you end up winning the League Cup and the title or the Champions League, maybe the FA Cup, but I'm not sure. If you win the League Cup and the Champions League or the title, you win them 2, that's a success. You can accept that as a success. If you win the League Cup and the FA Cup, maybe not. Maybe that's not quite enough, maybe. Although they are the 2 that he's missing, isn't he? I think, has he won everything else then when he's done that?
Yeah, apart from the FA Cup and Europa League. That's
Europa League.
But,
you don't want to win that, do you? Because that means something's gone wrong.
Exactly. You know what I mean? We can say he hasn't won the Europa Conference League. You know what I mean? Like, no one has.
Or the Johnson's Paint Trophy.
The Johnson's Paint Trophy, or anything.
Why didn't he win that?
Why the under 23s any better? No, that'd be success for me. One more of the title in the Champions League, but we are going to win all 4. It's done.
Dan, what about you? Just as confident about all 4?
No, no. At least I'm confident. I think there's absolutely no reason not to be confident. The squad's all there. The momentum's certainly there after Sunday. I thought that was a great stepping stone in terms of what we can achieve this season. The mentality's there, the quality's there. But unfortunately, so are other teams. And it's never been done for a reason. Listen, it's very possible. I mean, Klopp's right not to sort of talk about it and pinpoint it. This side, this squad, will be chasing all 4 trophies. I think we've seen that in terms of the social media posts and obviously what Klopp has said. But they'll be hunting them individually, in my opinion. They'll be hunting. They've got the Carabao Cup. They'll be treating the FA Cup as its own separate entity. The Premier League will be what will be, but they'll be hunting that. And they'll be treating the Champions League the same. And if it just so happens that come the end of May or start of June, perhaps, with the Champions League in Paris now, we've got all 4 of them, and so be it. But it's impossible to sort of quantify this in terms of, let's go for the quadruple. Let's just go for it, that, and that. And then if we get them all, happy days.
Well, the celebrations seemed to be muted at the end of the game, and Klopp mentioned that the players just went back to bed by 12:30, and they seemed ready for business. And we move ahead.
Well there, by the way.
I know, they did, to be fair. Back before you guys as well.
Oh, so,
yeah. Yeah, they did well there. But now we focus on the FA Cup tomorrow against Norwich. It'll be our 4th meeting with them this season. What can we predict in terms of lineups? Dan, what do you expect?
A lot of rotation, I think. I think I've seen today Norwich are missing 5 or 6 players from what they would like. And also, apologies if you're about to mention this, but I think Norwich play Brentford and Leeds in the next 2 games, which are absolutely huge for their season. So I've got a feeling that they'll prioritise the league as opposed to the FA Cup, which is fair enough because obviously they are now in a relegation fight. It's almost better for us that they've given themselves half a chance, because if they were still cut adrift, they could probably have a go at the Cup. But now that's not the case. So for us, I don't think we're going to see anything like the Shrewsbury lineup. I think it'll be stronger than that. I think there'll be players who were on the bench on Sunday who should be chomping at the bit to come and play and prove a point, because, you know, they've seen where these cup runs can take us now. They want to be a part of that. I mean, certain players, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain in particular, has probably got right to be really annoyed at the minute, because he was obviously on the bench on Sunday and never came on, whereas Harvey Elliott wasn't on the bench to begin with. Only got promoted to the bench with the Thiago situation. And then Elliott comes on ahead of... It's a strange one, but there's players there who, like I say, have got a point to prove in many ways. Joe Gomez being another one as well. I think he probably features in this. There's a couple of interesting situations. I think Milner's one who I think will play, because obviously he gets half an hour on the weekend. Jota could feature because of the fitness he probably needs, having not played for a few weeks. And then I think the likes of Minamino, Origi, Curtis Jones hasn't been around much. He probably plays. But for me, probably the most sort of interesting talking point is whether Milner, because I don't think Trent plays. So does Milner play right back and cover for Trent? Or does Conor Bradley play right back so Milner can be in midfield and add some experience. That's the really difficult. Milner plays, I just don't know where. So I don't know if you guys have got any thoughts, because I can't work it out.
David, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you could also suggest that Gomez could still play it right back, and he just throws Van Dijk in there again, or he rotates Matip and Canate together. It's a tough one. It's really difficult to predict. Dan's dead right, though, in terms of, like, there's going to be loads of rotation. You're not going to see Mane, you're not going to see Diaz, you're not going to see Salah, maybe off the bench if we need them.
Yeah.
But you're not going to see them three. I mean, arguably, you could maybe see Mane, maybe because he got brought off in the first half, sort of thing, later on. Yeah, I think it's a very, very big game for the likes of Joe Gomez and Curtis Jones, to an extent, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain as well, because, I mean, especially Gomez and Curtis Jones didn't get in the squad for the final. And they should be now coming into this game and saying, well, I've got to do more to get myself in the squad. Like, what I'm doing now is currently not enough. I need to perform better. I need to show that I am a good footballer. It's harsh on Gomez in the sense that he hasn't played a lot of football, and he's not been sort of afforded the same opportunities as Matip to an extent. And Van Dijk as well, because they both missed a lot of football last season. And he hasn't had that run of games, but he has been pretty woeful whenever he's played. So it's right not to have played him. With Jones, he's supposed to be like coming through in this team and be a really positive, figure in the squad, and he can really change a game, and he just doesn't show it. He just doesn't do it for me. Like, yeah, you can run a bit and you can get the ball, but then where's your final product? What else have you got about you? You don't really. He doesn't provide anything more. And I think he's still sort of living off that Everton goal. I mean, I don't know whether you've both seen Bezzy's a few weeks ago with Trent. He brought it up like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, you've seen that
years ago. Like, you've got to do something more if you want to be a part of this squad. So this is a massive opportunity for them both to actually say to Klopp, do you know what? You were wrong to keep me out of this team. We can actually complete a mini quadruple for the first time ever, by the way, on Wednesday, because we've never beaten a team 4 times in 1 year, and we can do that if we win on Wednesday. So fingers crossed, that'd be nice. That's quadruple number 1 of the season, en route to number 2.
Well, Dan mentioned that Norwich have quite a few big games for their season on the horizon. So, David, what can you expect from the game tomorrow night then?
Yeah, look, they're not. I wouldn't say they're not bothered to it, but they're obviously they want to stay in the Premier League. Like, if they go down and get to the semi-finals of the FA Cup, they're not going to be bothered. They want to stay up. It's a tough trip as well. Like, you're going all that way on a Wednesday night, and I know we done it earlier in the season, but it's a tough trip. Dean Smith's already complained about it, and more so for the fans having to do that trip, and it's horrible. It's a nightmare of a journey. There won't be a lot of Norwich fans there, so it'd be a tough. Not the atmosphere's not going to be amazing at Anfield, is it? Let's face it, never is. But it's going to be a tough ask for them to come and beat Liverpool at Anfield. Very little following. Wednesday night, all that travelling. They're just probably going to just sit in and hope for the best. Hope to pick us off. Hope to keep us quiet. And I don't think they've got any hope. I really don't think they've got any hope. I think Liverpool will win this one relatively comfortably, if I'm honest. Even with all the rotation, I just can't see. As Dan says, they've got so many players out. They will be looking at Brentford and Leeds, which is, they're both 12 pointers the way things are going down there, aren't they? They're going to be more concerned about that. They might even use it as a bit of a training session to just nail some new sort of tactic down and try and do this. And I think we've got more than enough to see them off with a rotated squad to do.
Dan, what about you? What do you expect from the game?
Yeah, similar. I think Norwich are in trouble here. Thankfully, obviously. And it's not really their fault in many ways. Dave mentions obviously all the factors that have kind of contrived against them. In terms of when the trip is, because that'll probably enhance the atmosphere as well. The fact that it's a night game. Night games at Anfield are always better. I know it's not a Champions League night, but at the same time, it is under the lights at Anfield. So there's lots of factors going against them. And obviously their priorities will naturally lie elsewhere. I mean, Dean Smith isn't going to turn up and roll over, but I think he's going to be forced in many ways to prioritise what's coming down the road for them. And obviously, we've played Norwich 3 times this season, like Dave says. We've won all 3 with a variety of sides. So we've already proven that we've got too much for them regardless. We've also got a group of players that have got points to prove for a variety of different reasons. I think Simicast is another one, because I think he's been really good when he's been called upon. And I feel like I haven't seen him kick a ball for weeks. So he's probably going to start tomorrow, and he's been brilliant. So he could be brilliant again. So for me, I think everything points in our favour here. And that's beyond us simply being a better side than Liverpool. I think it's always difficult for Norwich to come to Anfield anyway, let alone because of the golfing class, but let alone with everything that I think is currently pointing in our favour here. It's like, it's like they're coming with really big players missing, and they've got priorities elsewhere. They don't really need the trip across the country to Anfield on a Wednesday night. It just spells, I'm not going to say anything mad like Kieran did against Leeds, but it spells quite a comfortable night's work.
Well, I'm worried about score predictions now, but I'll ask for them regardless. Dan, what are you predicting for the game tomorrow?
6-0, 4-0, 4-0.
4-0. David, how about you?
Yeah, not an absolutely mental like 7-0. 3-0, I think I'll go for. 3-0 was the one that came to mind, yeah.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there, David. I'll go with 3-0. And we'll finally look ahead to this weekend's fixture against West Ham, a team that we do have a bit of revenge to give to after they beat us earlier on in the season. First time as well, actually not really in that longer time, but we're playing before City, which is great in this title race that we've got, so that'll be interesting. What can we expect from West Ham? They play really well, and I've been quite impressed with them this season. So I'll start with you, David. What do we expect from West Ham?
Just your stereotypical David Moyes side of, lots of physicality. They'll make life very difficult to be direct. They'll sit in. Michail Antonio, assuming he plays, will be a threat. Although he does have a bit of a crush on Virgil van Dijk, if I remember rightly. Him and Troy Deeney are big fans. But yeah, I think it's a tough challenge because they're a good side. They've got some really good players. Declan Rice, fantastic, isn't he, in midfield? Yeah. They've got loads of attacking threat as well if they do manage to get the ball forward. Defensively, they're solid. And you'd like to think that we've potentially had a week off to rest for it. So that should bring us in good stead because, as we've said about Norwich, it should be a rotated team. So, look, it's going to be a similar task of, when the likes of your Tottenhams come, and Leicester in the last few years, they are of that ilk at the moment where they are challenging for the top 4 and they are in with the shout of European football. I know they've got a European game coming up. I can't remember exactly when that is, but I don't know whether that'll factor into, when they've played and stuff. They're a decent side. They are a decent side. And, it's a little bit harsh to say it's a stereotypical David Moyes side, actually, because he's probably moved on ever so slightly from his dinosaur days at Goodison Park. But it's not like when West Ham used to come a few years ago and used to go, 3-4-0, like we've just spoke about Norwich, we'll batter these. I'd like to think they do really remember that. I know Dan certainly will remember that defeat down in the London Stadium. I'm glad I never went to that one. No, I'm never glad to miss a game, but that should play heavily in their minds, especially those who played that day, because that's one of the big defeats of the season. That and Leicester, the only defeat of the season really, but that was a big one in terms of like the timing and how much we fell away from City and stuff like that. So it's a tough game, but we've got to be at our best to beat them. And I'd like to think, as I say, week off, we will be.
Dan, we saw in that defeat last time that we struggled to deal with West Ham set pieces, and they seem to effortlessly switch from defending and then attacking. So how can Liverpool beat them this time?
Well, be better in them areas. I suppose at the time we were having problems with them sort of sides generally, because only a few weeks earlier we had problems with Brentford as well. Yeah. But it looks like we've kind of overcome that in the past month or so. And we're not really fazed by any challenge at the minute. Because obviously we had a similar game against Burnley recently, and managed to deal with that threat quite nicely. So, yeah, I think we're in a better place now than we were then. If I'm honest, I think I'm not going to go as far as say the wheels are off, but we weren't quite firing on all cylinders, whereas we are right now. And whether West Ham can live with that, I'm not sure, because West Ham have had a little bit of a dip. The results have kind of been slightly inconsistent. They were almost out of the top 4 race. I know they beat Wolves on the weekend, which probably just about crept them back in. I mean, that top 4 race is a mess, isn't it? Regardless. And then if anyone's seeing like a hurdles race where everyone falls over, but it's looking very much like one of them at the minute. But yeah, West Ham present a very difficult challenge. David Moyes gets his sides organised. We know that. We've seen it countless times before. They got loads of physicality with Rice and Souček. We just got to match him. However that looks, we've just got to match it. And if we can match them, which we didn't do at the London Stadium, if we can match them physically, we'll beat them in terms of football. That's the way I look at it, because it wasn't really... I mean, the first goal obviously comes from a corner that's half a foul on Alisson. And then Kurt Zouma scores with a header. And then a counter-attack. It's just silly situations, 2 set pieces and a counter-attack. Jurgen Klopp won't be happy with that. He won't be happy with that. So limit them situations, deal with the physicality better, and we should be able to play them off the park.
Well, we mentioned as well a heavily rotated team tomorrow, but on Saturday, what can we expect in terms of team selection, Dan?
Back to full strength. I know Klopp said Thiago's probably not going to be available today, so full strength doesn't quite look like full strength. But for me, all the big guns are back, aren't they? You know, your full-backs are back in, hopefully after not playing tomorrow night. I mean, the ideal situation this week, to kind of summarise the whole week, is we get through Norwich unscathed tomorrow, and the big players aren't required. You know, they just sit on the bench, watch the whole game pan out, smile and walk into the change rooms afterwards. And then Saturday, they're all there, ready to go again in the Premier League. Because if there are areas we can really punish this West Ham side, it sounds so simple to say, it is in terms of their defence and our attack. Because, I mean, Kurt Zouma, boo, for a start. But also, they got Craig Dawson on the other side, and Vladimir Koufal's injured. So they have got weaknesses. Aaron Cresswell I actually really like, but he's very attack-minded left back. So Salah should have plenty of joy there. So yeah, like I say, full strength. What that front three looks like is an interesting topic. But for me, because Jota's going to be fit by then, it would be Salah, Jota, and Diaz. I know.
David,
Wow.
How about you? What about your thoughts on the Liverpool lineup and then the front three?
Well, I mean, I'm with him in the sense that that's our strongest front three at the minute. It really is. As great as Mane has been, as great as Firmino has been in the past, it's not really... They haven't been bad, but this season, that is the best front three we've got at this moment in time. And I think Diaz will be... And Jota as well, to be fair, to be key against West Ham, because... As Dan mentions there, you've got Craig Dawson playing centre-half. He's in his mid-30s. He's not known for his pace.
No.
If you can get one of or both, Salah or Diaz cutting in from inside and going at him, with Jota just giving him headaches from dropping deep and going in behind and going on the channels, he could just self-implode and just disappear, because it'll be massive. And yeah, I think everywhere else we're back to full strength. I think Van Dijk and Konate might be the two that go at centre-half, just with the physicality of the game. You're probably looking at Fabinho, Henderson, and it's a tough one, the other one. You could even see Milner go in there and just give you a little bit more steel in midfield and try and dominate from that point of view. You know, we used to talk about the old Brexit midfield, didn't we, of Henderson, Milner, and Gini Wijnaldum. That used to be the old engine room, and you could see Milner come in for that, but... As Dan says, match them physically. We beat them on a football pitch. We'll get in behind if we can. But we've just got to make sure that we don't give up an early goal, because they will then sit in. And that's always the danger for me at Anfield, is if we let any opposition get ahead, they'll just shut up shop, and then that's when we start to struggle, because we like a little bit of chaos in our game. We like to nick the ball in midfield and go on the front foot. It works. And if we lose that ability, we limit our chances of scoring goals.
So what are you predicting the score then to be on Saturday, David?
Quite a lot closer than Norwich. I think maybe just a 1-0 or a 2-0 potentially, because I think it'll be a lot tighter. I think the game might go on a little bit longer before we score. I don't think we might score in the first half. I think it might come in the second half. And I just think, I mean, to be fair, it's a mad one, because we're talking about this team that I think I've just reading there, we've lost once at home to West Ham in the last 48. But that just says how much they've improved this season and last season. But I do think we still should have enough in us to just grind, as Dan says, Burnley-esque, grind it out. Don't be shocked if you see Origi come on again and just give you a bit more of, something up front. So I don't know what Klopp's season. I really don't. But he's a big lad, isn't he? He's a big lad. He runs around and that. But yeah, I think maybe 2-0. I'll go for 2-0.
I can't believe you disrespected Lord Divock there, David, but we'll let it slide.
What does he do, though, Taran?
What doesn't he do?
He doesn't do anything. That's
Two
what he
words,
doesn't do.
big moments.
Big moments right now. This thing that
moments.
gets me right. He scores in the Champions League final. Yeah, great. 15, maybe 20 seconds earlier, he gives the ball away and Harry Kane hits the post.
That wasn't a big moment. Well, nearly was. But...
It really was. That's what, you know what I mean? He comes on Sunday. He does absolutely nothing.
He also has a strange knack of finding mad ways to put the ball in the net.
Yeah.
He does. He does. Yeah. I get
one of the weird, instinctive finishes, isn't he? If he's got time, you're knackered. Yeah. But if he hasn't got time to think, it just happens. He
just does it. It's like Wolves. Yeah. He comes on at Wolves, and I'm just like, well, that's we're done. We're done. And then all of a sudden, he ends up in the box. Jose Sarr's got
enigma, mate.
Yeah, enigma.
Absolute enigma.
He is an enigma. He is. You're right. He's just. I've never known a footballer to be absolutely useless, but universally adored as well. Yeah. It's just crazy. It baffles me.
He's God's gift to this football club. And
he's a nice fella,
he is.
To be fair,
Dan, how do you see the game going then on Saturday?
Yeah, I think it'd be difficult for periods, but I just think once we get in front, which I believe we will, West Ham, in a weird way, West Ham have got bigger fish to fry than this game because, like I mentioned earlier, that top four race is so unpredictable. The David Moyes probably won't be targeting Liverpool and Anfield away because we're on sort of different pathways at the minute. They're on this pathway they just need to pick up as many points as possible to potentially scrape into the top four, whereas we're on this pathway whereby we need to win every game in terms of challenging for the Premier League. So a loss for them doesn't actually feel too catastrophic at the moment, whereas obviously it arguably would be for us. And obviously the chance of playing ahead of City is always nice, especially given what went on at the weekend. So, yeah, I think we had too much for them. I think we'll learn our lessons from last time out. We are that good that it's very rare. I almost don't want to say it. It's very rare that we'd get beaten twice by the same team in the same season. I don't envisage that happening. So, yeah, I'm going to say the same as Dave. I'll say 2-0 with both goals coming once we've sort of broken their spirit, which sounds mad, but sort of give it 20 minutes whereby they're okay, and then we grind them down, score before half time, and then something similar happens in the second half whereby they think they've got a sniff, and then we kill it after an hour or something.
Well, I'm going to go full house and join you guys and go for a 2-0 as well. So that ends our podcast. Thank you very much, David, for joining us, and Dan as well. Thank you for joining this evening, and thank you everyone for watching this week. We'll be back soon with the next edition of the Shankly Gates podcast. Thank you very much.